Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our final class in this nervous system reset series. I hope you've been enjoying so far. If you're just joining us for the first time, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here in this community. I would recommend going back to class 1, which is a deep nervous system reset in the form of a body scan. And each subsequent class builds on that deep reset that we're cultivating and helps us to begin to build resilience slowly and gently. So this is the final class in that series, and we've been slowly building up our resilience by introducing a little bit of stress in the form of some movement, some vinyasa, and then backing off and seeing how the body responds and then adjusting accordingly. So we're going to continue that theme today. And if you noticed, the titles of these classes had sort of a caterpillar to butterfly transformational theme. So we're going to incorporate that in a way too by moving from crawling to flying today. So go ahead and grab your mat, grab some blocks or books or sturdy pillows if you have them to help prop your body up, to open the hips. And grab a blanket if you need any padding for your sit bones, your hips, your knees. And just make sure that your space feels nice and calm and quiet, and then we'll get started. Okay, so we're going to begin today's class like we've been beginning many of our classes, which is in child's pose. So go ahead and take the knees nice and wide, toes together, and then just begin to move the sit bones down toward the heels. Again, they don't have to reach. If they do, that's fine. Let them settle. If they don't, feel free to place a blanket or a pillow behind your sit bones so it fills in that space, and you can begin to relax the hips, relax the low belly, surrender the heart, and allow the forehead to make contact. So if the forehead can't reach the mat, that's perfectly fine. You can take a pillow, a block, something that can bring the floor a little closer to you, and then let the forehead rest down. And just allowing the parts of the body that are making contact right now to melt, to surrender to the support that's beneath them. And beginning to take deeper, fuller breaths. So starting like this is an offering of a checkpoint, a check-in. Just noticing how the body feels, how the mind feels. And because we live in such a busy, hectic environment most of the time, it's important to recognize the difference between being in a fight or flight response and what our true energy level is. So as your breaths begin to deepen and as the body begins to settle and that urge to go, go, go begins to dissipate, notice what's underneath that. Notice your true energy starting point. And perhaps you just want to give it a rating, 0 to 10, 10 being you could jump off the walls, you're full of so much energy, and 0 is like, I just need to crawl into bed for a few days. And with that rating, just begin to not only note it, but take note of how you can honor that throughout your practice. So if you are feeling lower on the scale, not pushing and forcing, not moving quickly, coming back to this child's pose any time that your body needs a break. If you are feeling higher energy, then maybe you feel good to challenge your edges a little bit today. So just keeping note of all of that as we roll up to tabletop position. I'm setting the block aside for now. And just finding your grounding here. So spreading the fingers nice and wide, toes are tucked, shoulders rolling away from the ears. And then we're just going to begin to move with the breath. So inhaling, arching the back, sending the heart forward, crown of the head up toward the sky. And then exhale, rounding the back, dropping the head, gazing toward the navel. Good. And starting slow in this way. letting the body begin to open up to become more fluid, allowing the breath to become more silky. And then as things become more smooth, you can pick up the pace if it feels good. As we've been talking about throughout this series, letting the pace of the breath, the natural breath, dictate the pace of the movement. So if the breath is naturally deep and slow, keeping that deep, slow, rhythmic movement. Good. And maybe now you want to move from side to side. So you can twist your shoulder and your hip toward one another, your glute. So getting a really deep stretch through that right side as I'm crunching to the left and then crunching to the right. Ooh, this feels good on the obliques. Make sure that the neck is getting involved, that the muscles of the face are getting involved, getting some release of tension. And if you want to take your hips in a couple of circles, one direction, and then the opposite direction. Just talking to the body, getting to know the spots that feel tight and tense, the spots that feel open and spacious, and just bringing a loving awareness to it all. And coming back to our tabletop position, and we're going to work some balance today. So starting with a bird dog pose, we're going to extend through the left arm. And just take note here, grounding in, noticing how the body needs to adjust to find balance with one arm missing. And then extend the right leg straight back behind you, pressing through the heel like you're going to kick into the wall behind you, drawing the navel up toward the spine. Good. And just working with balance here. You might find you're a little wobbly. That's okay. If you need to drop your toes down or drop your hand down, that's also perfectly fine. And then from here, we're just going to play with opening out to the side. So left arm comes open out to the side like a T or a wing. And then the leg. I'm getting caught on the post here, so I'm going to move around it. Good. And this is definitely working the core. And then coming back to bird dog. We're going to do this 3 times. Inhaling, opening out to the side. Exhaling, extending back. Last one. Inhaling, opening out to the side. Finding that balance, that core strength. And then extending back into bird dog. And I noticed my navel wanted to dip down a little bit. My back wanted to arch. So just watching that, keep drawing the navel toward the spine. And then dropping the hand, the knee down, and take a child's pose. Feel free to shake it out. This is a great way to relieve tension, to allow stress to move from the body, is just to wiggle or shake it out. Many other animals do this after their nervous systems have been triggered. And then coming back to your sturdy, steady tabletop, extending through the right arm, extending the left leg back behind you, and just working with the balance here. Maybe you're just staying here today. That's more than enough. And then if you'd like to play with the balance a bit more, you can extend the left arm out like a wing. The right arm out like a wing, and the left leg comes out to the side to meet it or oppose it. And then extending back to bird dog. Inhale, opening out to the sides. Keep drawing the navel in. Exhale, bird dog. Inhale, extend out to the side. Stretch, lengthen, expand. And then come back to your bird dog. Draw the navel toward the spine. Drop the hand, drop the knee, and stretch it out. And sigh it out. Good. And just notice how the body responded to that. How did the mind respond to that? When we feel challenged, when we feel pushed to our edge, how does the mind respond? How does the body respond? Just getting some good intel here. Coming back up to table, walking the knees back a step or two, and then lifting the hips, lifting the glutes up toward the sky, coming into a down dog. And you can just pedal your down dog out here. If the hips are feeling especially tight today, you can walk the feet to the outer edges of the mat. And bend the knees just slightly, lift the hips up toward the sky. Let the neck and the head drape down. Shoulders roll down the back. And then maybe the heels find themselves moving closer down toward the mat. Pressing strongly through the palms. The elbows are drawing in toward the center of the mat, so the shoulder blades roll away from one another. And then walking the feet back to about hip width. And let's extend the right leg straight back behind us. Getting a similar stretch to bird dog, but now we've got that straight left leg so we can stretch through the back side of the leg. And then lifting the right leg straight up toward the sky, bending the knee, opening the hip. And normally I would say square the shoulders toward the front of the mat, but today, go ahead and let that side body begin to open toward the right. Just staying strong in that left shoulder so it doesn't cave in. But really allow that hip to open deeply, that right hip. Good, and then extending the leg back up toward the sky, coming to hip width and dropping the foot down. Let's do the same thing on the left side, so extending through the left heel. Then lifting the leg all the way up as high as it's willing to go today in this moment. Bend the knee, take the the heel toward the glute. And then opening the knee, opening the hip. Good. And the body naturally wants to turn toward the left side, and just allow that today. But again, staying strong in that right shoulder, not caving in. Good. Breathing into that hip space. I don't know about you, but this feels so good to me. And then extending the leg straight up toward the sky, coming to hip width and dropping it down. Okay. Inhale, look forward. Exhale, step the right foot to the front of the mat, bending into the knee, right over the ankle and dropping the back knee down. Squeeze the front heel toward the back knee and inhale into low lunge. Good. So here's a place where you may want to grab your blocks and place them down so you can press into them and lift the abdomen off of the thigh, off of the hip, and get a little more space. Alternatively, you may like to raise your arms up and get a stretch through both sides of the body. Good. And placing the hands down, beginning to straighten that front knee, coming into our runner's lunge. Good. So here we're sending the right hip back, the left hip forward, keeping the hips square. Lengthening through the spine. Good. Nice deep stretch here. And bending back into that front knee, lifting the back knee up, squeezing front heel toward back toes, and inhale, come up high lunge. Good. And we're going to go right into some balance work today. So keeping that front knee right over the ankle, bring a little bend into the back knee, and we're just going to play with lifting off. So we're going to lean forward and lift just an inch or two, and then coming back down. So if you're feeling challenged by balance today, which happens for each of us, we really can't predict it from day to day. And for women, we have different times throughout our cycle where we're a little more off balance, especially as we're moving closer to menstruation. So just keeping that in mind, but maybe you'd like to have your hands on some blocks and just practice lifting from here. getting the same work, same action, same benefits. Good. Let's do about 5, okay? So you inhale, lift off, keeping that back leg strong like we were in our down dog. And then exhale, coming down. Inhale, lifting, hips squared, pressing through that back heel, and dropping down. I'm going to do one more. Inhale, lift. Pause here. Exhale, down. Good. Now, keeping the hands on blocks or on the ground, make sure that the blocks feel extra steady. So I'm going to drop them down to their lowest so that they are on the ground and can't fall. And we're going to inhale here and exhale, jump switch. Good. Or you might want to step switch. That's perfectly fine. Dropping the back knee down, squeezing the front heel toward the back knee so you feel those inner thighs engage, and then lengthening up, low lunge. And just settle here. Notice how the mind wants to jump ahead. What's coming next? What's coming next? The mind likes to feel a sense of control, right? Like it can predict the future. And the truth is we can't, unfortunately. Most of us anyway, I don't think can. So the best thing we can do for our nervous system is to come back to the breath and to remind ourselves that in this moment, all is well. In this moment, we are safe. In this moment, we have all the resources that we need. One more inhale here. Exhale, place the hands down, maybe on blocks, maybe onto the mat, and begin to straighten through that front leg. Coming into our runner's lunge. Good. Pressing through that back left hip, right hip gently moving forward to meet it. So there's this counter action. Left toes pointing straight up toward the sky, left heart, heart space moving toward the front of the mat. And feel free to verbally, audibly sigh it out. Anytime you feel tension bubbling up, it's just energy, old stagnant energy beginning to move. Begin to bend back into that front knee, place the hands, lift the back knee up, squeeze front heel toward back toes, and then lift into your high lunge. Good, so settling in here, and I always notice on this side, on my left side, my hips are a little more wonky, so if you want to bend that back knee, scoop the tailbone to get a little more lift through the spine, and then straighten the back leg. That's perfectly fine. Adjust as needed. And then we're going to work the back leg coming up again, lifting off. So we're going to lean forward a bit, and maybe you work here, lift off. You're probably going to notice that one side is different than the other. If you want to bring your hands down on blocks, go ahead. We'll inhale, lift. Stay strong through that back heel. And lower down. Good. Inhale, lift. And exhale, lower. And we'll do one more wherever you're at. Inhale, lifting. Good. Arms can come out to a T if you'd like. And then exhale, lowering. And placing the hands down and stepping back into a plank pose. Let's take an inhale here. Exhale, knees, chest, chin. Inhaling into cobra. And exhaling, pressing up and back into down dog or coming back to a child's pose. And let's take 3 to 5 breaths right here. Maybe you're nursing a little bit of a winter cold like I am, a little bit of a head cold. So just honoring what's going on in the body today. I actually don't like treating the practice, like every practice, like it's our last, although it could be. Because it encourages this like leave it all on the mat mentality. And actually, most yogic texts tell us that we're to work at about 50 to maybe 75% of our total effort. So it's okay to back off. It's okay to do the modified version. It's okay to sit a pose or a vinyasa out. Good, and then we'll meet in down dog. Inhale, extending the right leg straight back behind you, looking forward and stepping the right foot through. Swiveling the back heel down, coming up into a warrior two position. So bending into that front knee right over the ankle, stretching through the outer line of the back leg, heel moving down toward the mat. Good. Now we're going to move into a triangle position. So maybe you need to heel toe that back foot in just a little. And you might need to move the feet further apart. That gives the hips a little bit more room to move. And then we'll inhale here, exhale, press the right hip back like we did in our runner's lunge. And begin to allow that right hand to drop down. So maybe it drops to the ground, maybe the shin, or maybe you'd like to have a block handy. Keep moving that right hip back, left hip forward. And the lower body is going to stay here just as it is. And then the upper body, the mid back, is going to begin to turn open. And then we extend the top arm. Coming into Trikonasana, triangle pose. And just breathing here. And a trick that I learned is that rather than squeezing the heel and the back foot close toward one another, we can actually energetically press them away from one another, and it really grounds our feet into the mat. And that only works if you have a grippy mat. Otherwise, you might come into a split. Taking that top arm now and placing it on the hip and turning our gaze toward the front of the mat. Let's bend into the front knee just slightly and walk your hand or your block just a few inches in front of you. Now, similar to what we were doing with the jump offs, we're going to do that here. So turning the back toes, back heel up toward the ceiling. Little bend into the back knee and then lift. So maybe you're working here today, just beginning to spread our wings. If you feel pretty balanced here, you can begin to open that bottom right hip up. Open the top left hip up. Allow the spine to turn open and extend the top arm, coming into a half moon pose. There's a lot happening here, a lot of strength, a lot of balance. You can absolutely do this against a wall. And you can also come down and work on opening. Maybe you come this far. Maybe this far. This far. So just taking a couple of breaths to work with this pattern of leaning into the unknown and spreading our wings and opening fully into it. Good. 2 more breaths right where you are. Good. And placing the hands down, placing the back toes down, stepping back into a plank position. Take a deep inhale here. Exhale, knees, chest, chin. Press through the back toes, rolling the shoulders down and lifting into cobra. And then exhaling, pressing up and back into down dog or child's pose. 3 breaths here. And then we'll meet in down dog together. Strong, steady, grounded. Inhale, extend the left leg straight back toward the wall behind you, if there is one. Look toward the front of your mat, bend the back knee and step it through. Swivel the back, heel down, and cartwheel the arms up into warrior two. Take a beat here, settle in. And then maybe you want to heel toe the back foot in just a bit. Maybe you heel toe that front foot open just a little bit to give the hips more room to turn. And then the left hip begins to move back, the right hip forward as we lean forward. And when you find your natural stopping point, let the arm drop down. Maybe it reaches the shin, the ground, a block. And just work the hips here. Left hip keeps moving back, right hip forward. Pressing those feet into the mat, moving them energetically away from one another. And then drawing the navel toward the spine and begin to open. And maybe you keep the top arm on the hip, or maybe you extend it up toward the sky. You can gaze at that hand, you can gaze just straight ahead, you can gaze down toward the mat. And top arm comes back to hip, looking toward the front of the mat. Bring a gentle bend into that front knee. Hand comes out in front of you. Maybe you're on a block, maybe on the mat. Back heel lifts, and then we step up. So it might take a couple, right? A couple little bunny hops. And then you lift and just work here. Hips squared, navel lifting. Good. And if you've got that down and you're feeling like you can hold for a breath or two, maybe you can begin to open through that bottom hip, open through the top hip, and then the spine begins to open, the gaze begins to open, and it might be wobbly, right? New wings. Good, and just working with the breath. Maybe you come down, take a beat, catch your breath. And then try again. Lift up, open the bottom hip, top hip, spine, crown of the head, arm. Couple of breaths here. And this pose is called full moon, Ardha Chandrasana. But to me, it feels like flying. And then placing the hands down, stepping the back foot down, and stepping into a plank. And feel free to come straight to child's pose or down dog, or move through a vinyasa. And let's meet in child's pose. Once again, allowing the parts of your body that are being supported to totally melt into that support. Allowing that third eye space to make strong contact either with the mat, a pillow, a block, your forearms, whatever is accessible in this moment. And just notice how you can do the work. You can move in a challenging way, and yes, the nervous system is activated. And you can pause, breathe, and reset in any moment. And it can be really important to nervous system healing to have these checkpoints throughout the day. So maybe you set an alarm on your phone first thing in the morning or mid-morning, sometime in the afternoon, and again in the evening to just check in, take a few breaths, and notice your true energy set point in that moment. Good. And let's crawl our way into a seated position, staying low to the ground. Bringing the bottoms of the feet together and just flapping our wings here in butterfly pose. Feel free to sit up on a blanket to support the knees with blocks and just stay steady if that feels better in your body. And then there's a couple of options here. We're going to fold forward. You can keep the heels just as they are. You can see if sliding them closer to the pelvis feels okay in your body. And you can also take a wider variation to get into those outer hips a bit more. So this is more of a diamond shape. And then you can fold forward. And again, blocks can be really helpful to the body here. Lengthening through the spine. And then exhaling, surrendering. And when you find a natural stopping point in the body, you can begin to round the upper back and drop the head down. As your breath begins to deepen and lengthen, maybe you begin to scan through the body, noticing the crown of the head, the muscles of the face, and where you might be able to soften. The back of the skull and the neck, the muscles of the throat, the chest, the upper back, shoulders, the mid-back, the abdomen, the pelvis, the lower back, the sacrum, the hips, inner and outer thighs. Where can you soften? The knees, the shins, the calves, the ankles, tops and bottoms of the feet and the toes. Checking in with the arms now and seeing if the upper arms can soften, the elbows, the forearms, wrists, and hands. Just fully relaxing into this pose, letting this pose hold you. Good. As you're ready, you can slowly begin to bring your torso back upright. An option here to find a seated position that feels comfortable in your body right now, or to lie down wherever you find yourself. And you can place the hands on the knees if you're sitting, or on one hand across the heart space and one hand on the lower abdomen. Whether you're sitting or lying down, this option will work. And just begin to draw your awareness deeper into the body. Feeling the abdomen fill with air on the inhale, and feeling it move back toward the spine on the exhale. And just beginning to lengthen the breaths. Letting each inhale fill up fully. Each exhale release completely. And just becoming the observer of all the sensations in your body, the observer of thoughts moving across the screen of the mind. Not needing to hook into, to diagnose, to figure, to fix anything. Just watching, just noticing. And keeping this stillness, this inner peace that you've cultivated. And drawing the hands sweetly to heart center. Gently bowing the head in reverence to the work that has unfolded, the work that you've engaged. So grateful for this body and all that it allows us to do, that it allows us to move through the world, to engage, to sense, to feel, to touch, to interact. So grateful for this mind that allows us to think and ponder and imagine and understand. So grateful for these practices of awareness that bring us to this recognition, to this realization, and drop us back into the heart of gratitude, which is our true nature. I bow deeply to you for doing this work, for showing up, for beginning to work with your nervous system and to understand that it doesn't have to be in the lead. It doesn't have to be in control. But there are skills and tools and resources that we can work with so that our fight or flight response is reserved for those situations where we truly need to fight or flee. And that we can use our counter side of our nervous system, the rest and digest and heal and restore more often. Simply by releasing tension. Simply by coming back to the breath. Thank you so much for joining me in this series. If you have any questions for me about any of the practices, the poses, the breath patterns that we used, please leave a comment or reach out to me directly and I will leave my contact information in the description below. If you are enjoying the end of the practice where we sit and we breathe and visualize and come into stillness, I will link the breath series, the breath and meditation series that I've created It's 10 classes that will lead you through different breathing techniques that can be used for different things that you're working on in your life right now. And hopefully that can be of service to you. And if there is something that you're currently working on that you would love support on through a practice, please let me know. I create these practices simply to be of service so that they are accessible to all. And I would love to continue to do that for you. So if there's any additional ways that I can be of service to you, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you again for being part of this community, and I will see you again soon.